And I want to obviously thank our great legislators, our Senate President, Speaker of the House, CFO, and all the great senators and representatives who are up here. Today we're signing a bill which you look at some of these things that haven't been happening as much, and I think part of the reason is because there's a fear of liability that, okay, if you have one of these events, are you going to end up having to battle lawsuits? So I think a lot of people have governed themselves accordingly with that fear, but we also we also believe, I think, as a legislature and certainly me as the governor, that we don't want to be in a situation where people are scared of being sued just for doing normal things. And so we worked very early on to to see ways that we could provide some certainty for both businesses and healthcare providers. This was obviously a top priority for many of us up here, and I think that the legislature has been able to deliver today. So we're excited about being here. We're excited about being able to sign the bill. I think it's very common sense. There have been other states that have done this, but I think that probably most of the states have not yet done it, and so we're maybe not quite tip of the sphere like we are in big tech and some of the other stuff, but I think we're certainly near the top, and we appreciate their thoughtful efforts here. And I hope that this will provide some certainty for folks. If you look in Florida, nationally the unemployment rate 6.2%. Here in Florida, it's 4.7%. And that's with still having some of the issues with liability people are concerned about. That's with there being a federal lockdown on the cruise line industry. That's with there not being the type of flights that we're used to having coming in where people are coming and spending money in Florida. So we're ahead of the curve, much more ahead of the curve of you look at states like New York, California, even Texas. We're far ahead of them in terms of our economic performance and better in the health metrics as well, which we appreciate. So, but this I think is going to be really, really good. So this bill will be effective immediately, and I think the message is we want folks to be able to live their lives, provide opportunities for people to do different things, and then let individuals make the decisions about what they want to do. You want to go listen to the band, go do it. You don't, that's fine, but we want those opportunities for as many people as possible. So I thank Senator Simpson, I thank Speaker Sprowls, and everyone here. I'm going to let them come up and say a few words, and then I will sign the bill. Chris?
Well, thank you, Governor. I appreciate you holding this event today. I tried to talk the Senate President into karaoke when this is over, but we couldn't agree on a song. It's really the first thing we haven't been able to agree on all session long. What we're doing here today is very important. The governor mentioned that there's other states who have addressed COVID liability for businesses and healthcare. But I'm proud to stand with him, with President Simpson, with our colleagues in the Senate and the House to tell you that this is the most aggressive COVID liability protection bill in the United States of America. And that was... I commend the governor for his leadership. We all took this on. This is a great example for Floridians on how your government works and truly works together. The governor came out very early on and says we got to get businesses open, we got to give them the confidence. And I think there's probably not a person in this room who hasn't been to their favorite pizza place or their favorite restaurant or their favorite location to go and hang out with your family where you have not had a business owner who says, I am scared. I am worried about what could happen. Even though I'm doing all the right things, I'm worried that I could get hit with a lawsuit. Or you have our frontline healthcare workers who've been working so hard during this pandemic who are concerned that they too could be a victim of a frivolous lawsuit even though they're doing the right thing. What this bill does is says if you're doing the right things, you're protected. You're protected and you have the most aggressive protection in America. If you're doing the wrong things, then there's a way for people to get there. But this is an awesome example about how our partners in the Senate, Senate President Simpson and I got to work together with our Senate colleagues, with our House members, Chair Burton on the Healthcare Committee, spearheaded our work in the healthcare liability bill. Representative Lawrence McClure from Plant City tackled our business liability bill, which we passed off the floor week 1. But we're proud of the work of the House and Senate. It's a great example of our government working for small business owners and for people throughout the state who are doing the right thing. We're delighted to be here.
And I want to reiterate everything the speaker just said. It was a real honor to working with the House and their staff to make sure that we got a comprehensive package put together. But the reason this bill is so needed is because this governor had a vision. As soon as we shut down, how do we reopen safely? How do we protect our most vulnerable? How do we get our economy moving? That shows up in every matrix and every set of numbers you can derive from the pandemic. And so this governor has shown great leadership. We've had businesses, frontline workers in healthcare, that in the face of the tragedy that they were facing last March, April, May, had to go to work every day, had to prepare, had less PPE than they would have preferred to have had. This bill was essential to make sure we protected those folks. All of the days that were shut down, there were no farmers shut down anywhere. There were no truck drivers shut down anywhere. Everyone still had to eat, everyone still had to go to work that was going to provide for those basic services that had to be accomplished, so that we could all live our lives, even in a lockdown state. So when we think about being locked down, we're talking probably 30 or 40% of our population were actually locked down. The rest of us were still working every day. Those businesses that had to be there every day then, we're here for today. And so I appreciate the governor's leadership on this issue. I appreciate the speaker and his team working with us so well to get this bill done early in session. We're very proud to be here, Governor.
All right, let's do it. Get it done. I just wanted to make some comments. And I've said stuff previously, but we are not supporting doing any vaccine passports in the state of Florida. No one was more aggressive about getting this out. If you look at all the different points throughout Florida, whether it's a hospital, county health department, a retail pharmacy, a drive-through sites, church sites, all this stuff, it's important. But we always said we want to provide it for all, but mandate it for none. And that was something that, while it was advised to take, particularly if you're vulnerable, we were not going to force you to do it. So there was never under discussion any mandates to take vaccines. We will not have COVID vaccines mandated in Florida. The flip side of that, though, with these vaccine passports is it's completely unacceptable for either the government or the private sector to impose upon you the requirement that you show proof of vaccine to just simply be able to participate in normal society. You want to go to a movie theater? Should you have to show that? No. You want to go to a game? No. You want to go to a theme park? No. So we're not supportive of that. I think it's something that people have certain freedoms and individual liberties to make decisions for themselves. I also wonder, it's like, okay, you're going to do this, and then what, give all this information to some big corporation? You want the fox to guard the hen house? I mean, give me a break. I think this is something that has huge privacy implications. It is not necessary to do. We're going to have hit 3.5 million seniors that have gotten shots sometime this week, likely 75% of seniors. It's important to be able to do it, but at the same time, we are not going to have you provide proof of this just to be able to live your life normally. And I'm going to be taking some action in an executive function, emergency function here very shortly. But I just spoke with the speaker about it, and I'm telling Wilton publicly, so hopefully he agrees with me. But we need the legislature to come in and just say this is not happening in Florida. And I think that would provide a lot of certainty for a lot of people. I understand kind of how some folks can embrace the idea, and I'm not saying it's all necessarily done for bad purposes, but I think ultimately it would create problems in the state. It's not necessary to do, and so we're going to look to do it. So we will do some action this week, and then we will also work with the legislature. If you're going to be doing something on reform in terms of the outgrowth of this COVID crisis, and I do think there needs to be reform, including, I think that there should be more robust checks on the governor. Even though I utilize this power judiciously, I was trying to lift people up rather than continuing to lock people down. But you think about it, we have kids locked out of schools in different parts of this country for over a year. We have businesses that have been locked down and lives destroyed for over a year based on one governor's decision. And yes, even though I didn't take that, what if I had done that or someone else had done that? There needs to be some checks there. There needs to be checks on local government. They should not be able to be closing things down like we saw. I had to pry a lot of this stuff open over the summer, and that's why we see boom in certain parts of the state as a result of that. So I think all those things are important, but as part of that, I think we should say with a COVID vaccine, no passports, no mandates. And I think the vaccines are already showing to be beneficial. If you look at the senior rates, the seniors are doing better than the overall population in terms of fewer hospitalizations and fewer infections even. So I think it's good, and we've obviously worked very hard to get it. At the same time, this is an emergency use deal. It's not necessary, it hasn't even been fully approved by the FDA. And I just think that to do the vaccine passport's a big mistake. So we're taking action, and we're going to work with the legislature that whatever gets across the finish line to reform in light of this will also have something to say that that's just simply not going to be permitted in the state of Florida. Yes, sir.
And you're asking the legislature to also pass legislation.
So I think, yeah, so we're going to do an emergency order, which is obviously temporary, but then we want them to make it permanent to say no COVID vaccine passports. This is something that we want available for all, but mandated for none.
Can you talk about the people that were affected by your decisions? There were pregnant women, people with COVID, people caring for children at home who were denied unemployment because you didn't waive the requirements. And
Who's that? Can you give me that information?
they did waive them in states like Texas.
You have the information on those people that you can provide?
Well, yeah. Why didn't you waive it here? Why were those people denied?
So you didn't, can you provide me those, the indications of that or the examples?
Provide us the information. 'Cause
Okay,
you have
all
it.
right. Next.
Governor, are you asking for names, or we're asking you questions about actions you've taken? So are you looking for names that we need to give you?
I don't trust the premise of the question. So yes, I would like to see some validity to what they're saying before I indulge the premise, because I don't think that the premise, it's not something I'm going to accept at face value. Okay, let's do something else. Yes, sir.
Eric, what's your take on the THC cap that's moving to the House?
I have not endorsed that, and it's not something that I'm pushing. So I think I have talked with Chris about it, but it's not something I'm endorsed.
Paul, there's $3 million in your recommended budget that was for a marijuana testing. There's also legislation allowing DOH to take tests from MMTC. I don't know if you have any more information on that, or.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's, if you look at some of the stuff that's now coming down the pike, I mean, some of this stuff's got a lot of really bad things in it. And it's not necessarily what you would have had 30 years ago if someone's in college and they're doing something. You have some really, really bad stuff in there. So I think having the ability to identify that, I think that's safety. And quite frankly, when you get into some of that stuff, that's not medicinal at that point, for sure.
Governor, I wonder what your thoughts are of the statement by the head of the CDC this morning. She said she has a sense of, quote, impending doom, because she said the case trend line around the country is going back up, and it's a bad sign.
So listen, when you're in those positions, I think what you want to be doing is providing calm to people, provide the facts, but when you start talking about doom, I mean, what you're saying is that the vaccines must not work because we've had millions and millions of people around the country vaccinated, states like Florida prioritizing the elderly. I think it's working. I think it's good. I think if you look, this thing has followed a very consistent seasonal pattern. So right now, you see a little bit more increases in some of the northern parts of the country, but that tracks almost exactly with what happened last March and into April. And I think what you'll likely see is, I think you'll see a decline across the country as we get into April and May. And then I think what you need in our part of the country, based on last year, we never really go without in terms of the pattern of this. The North, they go spike and then they go nothing over the summer, then it comes back. So we obviously had the most significant outbreak June, July. And so I think we're going to have enough protective coat between immunity conferred by infection and by the vaccines by when we get to that point. But I think what you're seeing is the natural cycle of this. I think it's repeating itself year over year. And I think also when you look at, they say, oh, this state has all these new cases. But if you look, if they're all young people, and if the elderly people are protected, then you're not going to see a big surge in hospitalizations. And so in Florida, our peak hospitalized census for COVID patients was about 9,600 over the summer. Now, we're at about 2,850, I think, like that. And quite frankly, being in the 2000s is kind of the endemic baseline, somewhere in there. So I think we've made a huge amount of progress. I think the overall country has made a lot of progress. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that and just pointing out that we have more immunity in the population. We have these vaccines that are, I think, having a beneficial effect on our elderly population. But if you're saying it's going to be doom, when we've done however many, we've done 150 million shots nationwide, then to me, the message is saying that some of that stuff must not have been terribly effective. And I think there's actually probably evidence that it has been. If you look at the nursing home results over the last couple weeks, because, we went into nursing homes third week of December. We obviously had a bigger task than most states because we've got almost 4,000 LTCs. But if you look at that, by the time you did the first and second dose, probably December, January, first dose, end of January, February, maybe even into March for the second dose. Now you're a couple weeks beyond that, and you're really starting to see the decline across the country. It's really exciting to be able to see that. There's a lot of people that have been protected by getting those vaccines out. So I think things are going well. Now, we anticipated a little bit of a blip up in March, just because that's typically what happens. You go December, January, it goes down in February, a little up in March, and then it goes down in April and May. But I think the hospitalizations have been very stable because of the Seniors First vaccine strategy. The fact is, the folks who are getting testing positive tend to be people who are at very low risk for hospitalization, and that's a good thing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Follow-up question. You say that there shouldn't be a requirement for shots to participate in, normal everyday life. The state has mandates for school children. The state also has some mandates on.
Well, first of all, this vaccine.
I wanted to ask how you feel about that, because I just want to kind of.
So I'm not aware of any mandate to say that if I want to go to a football game or a basketball game.
I'm talking about children going to public school. There is an exemption for religious exemptions.
And I think those are important.
I'm just trying to figure out how you feel about vaccination mandates for.
So what I'm talking about is what we're going to do with this particular vaccine going forward. And first of all, this has not been approved for kids. It has not been. Now they're going to try that. But I also think this particular vaccine would be totally inappropriate to mandate for kids, given how low of a risk kids are to COVID-19. If you talk to folks, the respiratory hospital admissions for respiratory viruses for children this year, dramatically down year over year this winter compared to what it was in kind of the normal flu season. And that's an indication. And so it's not approved for kids. If it would be approved for kids, I would not support mandating it for kids. In fact, I think given how low risk COVID is and given how low of a risk the school setting is, it wouldn't make any sense to do that. But our vaccine passport is specifically focusing on the COVID-19 vaccines, the EUA that are under EUA. And this would be understand, if you do a vaccine passport to say, yeah, if you want to go to a movie theater, or you want to get on a plane, or you want to do that, that is a bridge further than we have ever gone in this country, without question. And it's a little bit different saying that versus saying, hey, with a measles or somebody in a school setting, which is obviously, could be very problematic. So we're not going to do it. This would be an unprecedented expansion, I think, of using this both with public or with private power. And that's why I think that businesses should not be allowed to be doing this either, because I think it just puts us down a slippery slope, and I think it'll end up being in a situation that we'll live to regret in the future. Okay, well, we'll have more stuff tomorrow. Thank you.